Okay, we are live. Outstanding. So I'll give it 5 or so minutes to let folks trickle in, and I'm going to put this link on YouTube or on Facebook. So that way we're good.
Perfect.
Or LinkedIn, whatever social media channel I end up picking that day. There's too many. And I'm only on one of them too. That's the worst part. I'm not even on any of the other ones.
There's certainly a plethora to choose from.
It's too many. Should be good. Let me just check LinkedIn. Okay. We're all YouTube, LinkedIn, social media,
All the things.
all of the things that I know how to operate. We are currently going. So let's just get started. I'm going to start the recording on my end here as well on the Zoom. Figure out how to do that. I think it's somewhere here. Okay, well, Krista, thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. I'm sure everybody who's going to watch this will really appreciate it. So before we get into it, and I'll let you introduce yourself and your company, just want to thank our sponsor, the Florida Atlantic University Masters in Supply Chain Management Program. Two incredible programs, one traditional 16-week courses, you finished in about a year or so, and one more professional driven 8-week courses paced out throughout about 18 months. Flexible online remote options, really highly consider it. If anybody who's watching this has questions, feel free to let me know, and thank you to them. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Krista, if you'd like to just introduce yourself and your company, and then we can start chatting about all kinds of fun stuff. But thank you again for taking the time to chat with us today.
Sure. And thank you very much for having me. So I'm Krista Specht. My role is Director of Sales for e-commerce for United Natural Foods. We are a wholesaler distributor. We are a $30 billion company founded in 1976. So we've been around a few years. We have about 30,000 employees. We carry 250,000 SKUs kind of product across our portfolio of consumer packaged goods. So when you think of food distribution, think of everything within the four walls of a supermarket, including services. And we have 58 warehouses across the US.
Wow.
When you think of complex supply chain, we are
Yeah.
in position.
So where did you say it was based? Where's the company based out of?
Our company is headquartered in Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay. But you've got hubs for distribution throughout the country.
Correct. We have 58 warehouses throughout the country.
Wow. So then, okay, so my first question is, take me through the different channels of distribution. You yourself are responsible for e-commerce. I mean, what's the company look like in terms of distribution and services, and kind of how does that complexity play out?
Sure. So across the consumer packaged goods and the food space, we have customers from every different size. We service customers that are e-commerce that have their own websites. We do drop shipping. We have a fleet of trucks. We have over 2,000 trucks to our fleet that we're servicing supermarkets on a day-to-day basis. Think of your large supermarkets, some that may have their own warehouses, and we also partner with them, or some that don't have their own warehouse distribution. Some of those more independent supermarkets. We even service, customers down to the size of 1-2 store, mom and pop stores, yoga studios. So really everybody across the board who sells food, we sell to.
Interesting. So, okay, well, now if you're doing e-commerce and it's all B2B, these are, all over the board size-wise companies. So the warehousing and the inventory management must be unbelievably complex. So what, take me through how that works and basically how a typical, what you do in the day of a director of e-commerce.
Sure. From our warehousing perspective and the different size customers, order fulfillment comes in different ways or different functionalities. So customers, if they have a single location, a warehouse of their own that we can bring product to, we're shipping out either on our trucks in full truckloads. We utilize LTL distribution for those less than truckloads. We also ship via UPS for those parcel ships. So really servicing customers of different sizes, you have to have the fulfillment to be able to meet those needs as well.
Yeah, good.
And in a day-to-day, as director of sales for our e-commerce division, I'm really working with my sales team in direct support of our e-commerce customers. So on a day-to-day basis, myself and my team, we have our hands in everything, from operations to order flow, to working with customers directly on assortment, category management, item selection, really every piece of the puzzle, any IT integration, tech things that may come up, or obstacles. We have our hands in the pot in absolutely every aspect.
No, that's wild. So the typical process by which someone on the procurement side of things would interact with your part of the business, they'll already have been vetted as an approved company, and they can go in, their purchasing team can go in and make any type of e-commerce order. Do they have a relationship management? Like, how do you organize that part of the procurement process? I guess the fulfillment process on your side.
From our customer standpoint?
Yeah. So like, how does the whole process work?
Yeah. So our customers come to us, and there's a vetting process. There's an onboarding process. We initially review each customer. We work with them. We onboard them. We give them all the tools. Most customers, depending on volume size, will be partnered up with an account sales manager for support, to navigate the network and help grow their business. So initially the customers are onboarded, and then we work very closely with them on demand planning. So, as customers seek to onboard new items, they choose their item assortment. That's something that our company works very hand in hand with them on. And then in turn, we work with our procurement department on the forecasting, demand planning for taking into account all those new customers and the demand that's coming in.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to chat about that. And the reason why I was asking is because, there's always a conversation about onboarding new suppliers, but you don't often hear about it onboarding customers, right? Especially in your side of things, it's equally important to talk about both sides of that coin. That's why I was asking. And
it's huge. And it really is a key to success, Stephen. And you're right. We always talk about supplier onboarding and the customer experience. That is one that, we work on a day-to-day basis. And that is, at the end of the day, that's your North Star, right? That customer experience. And especially where an organization as large as ours, when a customer onboards, and begins to interact and purchase from us and work with us, that can be really overwhelming to have to navigate through such a large network, because we do offer so much. And being able to condense that down and provide that experience to a new customer in an easy, a very flow through way, that's a key to success. And that's something we work on every day. And that's something that I'm very passionate about.
I imagine so. Okay, then let's pivot into, you touched on those topics, category assortment, inventory management, forecasting. Who does what as part of your organization? I mean, who do you have dedicated procurement folks who you're aligning based on your sales forecasts? They're going back and buying, or are they driving it through their volume, what they can get on price? I mean, how are these two sides of that coin working together?
Sure, it's a mix. It is very much a mix, but we do have a dedicated team of people who are very good at what they do, but they utilize different tools to create that mix as they approach buying. So it is very systematic. Company certainly of our size, it has to be systematic, it has to be automated. So those forecasts through volumes, through trends, through what's happening real time, absolutely feeds into the buying model. But then there are things that you need to account for. Example, new customers onboarding, right? And the customer wants to pull X amount of product that your model, history wise, you don't have. You don't have sight to. So you need to account for those things as well. And it's that communication and those channels of communication within the organization that feed into our buying team. Or if a customer wants to, pull a large volume, has a special event that maybe isn't built into the seasonality, into the history, we need to account for that. There needs to be a clear path of communication to be able to let the buyers know that that's coming, and then they can build it into the system. So it's a mix, certainly.
Because from a planning standpoint, your industry, because you're reselling, it's subject to natural conditions of the harvests and the yields, and I mean, whatever else is going on agriculturally, that's the one or two steps back. So there's always that element that impacts your ability to fulfill and have continuity. So that's interesting. Now, do you, so that's the inventory bit and the purchasing bit. From the outbound side on kind of the category management, let's say you're working with a major retailer. Are you combining forecasts? Are your folks working with their buying team and saying, well, this is what our models show that you had, versus them saying, well, this is what our models show that we want? Or is it more along the lines of they drive and you kind of coordinate that part of the process from a category management standpoint?
Sure. It is a lot of, the customer driving. A lot of times their systems, especially those larger customers, they have automated systems as well, right? That do their forecasting, and they're feeding over those numbers to us. And as a warehouse, as a distributor, we're looking at those numbers. We may make some call outs if we see some really large discrepancies. So it's something we monitor and we partner on, but for the most part, we're receiving in the demand and trying to service it.
Got it. Okay. Now, do you, in this space, I'm sure you mentioned it a couple of times, but something that it's impacting all industries, I'm sure yours in particular, is digitalization. So technology and all this kind of thing. What kind of systems and what kind of technology are you working with? What kind of trends have happened in technology? I mean, what's basically the tech landscape that you're working in?
Sure. I think right now, that customer journey, and we touched on it a little bit at the beginning with customer onboarding, but that experience, so customer journey, or whether you put that in the format of a supplier or an associate, how they're interacting with the organization, within the organization. Is it seamless? Is information all connected? That is a big piece of what we're working on. Our systems linked together. Can you access data correctly? Is it flowing does it link? Those are big topics. Also right now, certainly with Chat GPT and all the buzz around that, it's the exploration of, well, how do we leverage that, right? How do we use artificial intelligence to complement some of the work that we're doing, take some of those maybe routine tasks off of our people so they can concentrate more on those strategy pieces or those higher risk areas that really we need to vet through. How do we leverage artificial intelligence in our day-to-day?
Yeah, there have been more metaphors and parallels between things that I would have never connected. I mean, we did one of these podcasts about a month ago, maybe more, and one term that came up was a data lake and then a data pool. And I mean, all these different, next is going to be like a data estuary feeding into, but I guess it's true because there are so many systems that seek to solve one particular problem that you see a lot of companies stacking on multiple things that solve all the problems, but then they create their own problem, which is none of them talk to each other.
Yes.
Right. So I'm guessing you have a solid CRM system, and I'm guessing on the back end, you all have a good ERP system. Do they speak to one another, and do they speak to the customers, or do you find these challenges in your role as well?
So it's a constant, I think there's always a lot of opportunity in that. And another layer to this is, when you take companies as well that have scaled quickly, or companies that have done a lot of M&A, right? So companies that are merging, that are buying other companies, suddenly you're working with many different systems and trying to get them all to talk together. So that is another layer where with most companies, you're not just talking about one single homegrown company that has worked with their same system throughout history and built it up, right? Most companies have done some sort of action of acquisition, of merging. So that is an ever-going opportunity, especially with a company of our size.
So one thing, actually, I forgot to, I guess now would be a good time to ask it. From an inventory management side of things, on one of your or any of your 58 different distribution centers throughout the country, how tech-driven is that side of the business? I mean, are there warehouse management systems that are just racking and stacking and binning and just knowing where everything is and expiration dates and all this kind of thing? Is that pretty integrated as well?
Yes, that is very integrated. It's something we rely on, and also brings us a great deal of transparency to our customers. That is something that we work with, and is present in our warehousing systems.
Yeah. How big are those warehouses, by the way? I forgot to ask that too, typically. Do you know how massive they are?
The footprints are all different, depending on, we have different buildings. There's not a cookie cutter.
Okay.
So they can be really massive, and we have some smaller footprints. So it really depends on the building itself.
Yeah, I mean, because I imagine if you got a nationwide presence, it's not good. You're probably stronger in the Northeast given the company's roots, right? But even still, okay, that's interesting.
You can think of football fields, right? That's just to put it into image for you.
No, that's exciting. Okay, so as it relates to tech, or in general, I mean, the food distribution business is about as old as the country is when you think about it, right? So actually go back to ancient Egypt, I guess that's when they really started stockpiling grain. So that was the first supply chain, maybe. But what major not even tech, what major shifts have you seen over the past number of years, and where do you see it going? I mean, what does the future of your industry look like? What's going to be the biggest challenge that you think you'll face and have to overcome?
Certainly, from a tech standpoint, the need for transparency. So really the idea of, that glass pipeline, that for us is, for everyone, that is really something we're always striving towards. And that's something we use and talk about on a day-to-day basis. But that idea of transparency and flow in data. So not only connecting the data, but being able to be transparent about it and get it to different places. For example, move it from our procurement, our buying system to our sales team, so then customers can get to it. Really being able to work with that data and move it around. That transparency is key and will be even more important as time goes on.
Do you think there's any big, so that, and because I'm asking, okay, the preamble to the question is because data is at every part of the supply chain, but if you think about it, is one area more susceptible to improvement than others? So for example, if you think about outbound logistics, is that something in your industry that is relatively optimized and we're pretty dialed in, aside from maybe having a reefer truck that stays colder longer or a more efficient vehicle that can go faster on less? Is that less of an opportunity to improve versus, say, inventory management with technology or even category management? I mean, if you're looking at these different areas, where is data going to pop up as the most important thing in your industry?
There's still a lot of, so all those areas are certainly important. There's still a lot of opportunity in logistics, right? And even for us, that's our business, but we still see a lot of opportunity there. The changes in expectations of consumers, right? Of wanting real-time information. Where's my load? Where's my delivery, right? And in so many ways, the Amazon experience over the past years has shaped how consumers buy, how they expect to receive their data, how quickly they want to receive things. So in a great way, that has shaped the expectations. So there is definitely room for improvement and opportunity on outbound logistics, the transparency of it, the communication of it, all of those areas. Still, there's always room to grow.
Now, the one thing too that I've been thinking a lot about with, it started out with pharmaceutical back in the Obama administration, and you're starting to see different regulatory bodies govern transactions around perishable or consumable products differently. So obviously you deal with the FDA and the USDA, I'm sure, and all these other agencies that govern that sort of thing. Do you see any change or innovation that's coming as a result of regulation, or are you kind of, so basically, are you all trying to be proactive, or is it more along the lines of who knows what they're going to do? We're just going to deal with it as it comes. And the one kind of baseline is transparency and innovation on tech is just going to be the golden goose no matter what.
Sure. Again, it's a mix here. So we, on a daily basis, you always want to strive to be proactive, although you don't know what's coming. So always searching for, how can we better optimize? How can we better process improve? How can we do this better? And in doing that and kind of challenging the internal processes and trying to do that process improvement proactively puts us in a good position to meet a lot of those regulatory pieces that do come out. Most of our manufacturers as well, it's keeping very tight partnerships, very tight guidelines, policies, all of that. And that is, part of our SRM, our supplier relation managers. That is a part of, daily work in working with vendors and vetting vendors and the manufacturers that we work with, ensuring that all those policies are being met. But then from an internal standpoint, always trying to process improve and really work to the best how we can do things. So maybe a regulation is as is today, but perhaps we want to go above and beyond on our quality standards, or be higher than the bar. So it's a mix there.
Because it's such a massive industry. I mean, I'm trying to think of an industry that's similar to it, and the only one that comes to mind is maybe, kind of industrial distribution, maybe like the Graingers of the world and things like that, just in terms of the number of outbound customers that you've got, or you could potentially have, because everybody needs food at every part of the country. So it's an interestingly fragmented industry, I imagine. You tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like there's a lot of big players and they each have a relatively small share of a massive market, or is it more consolidated?
It is. There are the larger players where you have a pool that are kind of consolidated at the top, and then you have a massive amount of smaller players. So it is just a jumbled mix kind of across the board.
Yeah.
And then you throw, e-com in there as well. And from a distribution standpoint, that looks a little bit different also within our warehouses to bring in the e-commerce element to it. E-commerce, we ship out our drop shipping, our B2B service, we ship out parcel ship, right? So those are going UPS. Think about those boxes that arrive on your doorstep, as opposed to within our distribution centers, pick and packing cases of product on pallets, going on trucks to distribution warehouses. Those are different things that live within the same four walls in our distribution center. And they're set up a little differently as well.
Were you here during COVID, or you were in this industry for sure, but were you at this company during COVID, United
I
Foods?
was, yes.
Okay. Take me through the differences. Was the industry the same? Did it get more consolidated? And B, when everything happened, I mean, that must have been chaotic.
Chaos doesn't begin to describe.
Really?
It was something certainly across industries, right? No one was prepared for this. We haven't been through an event of this magnitude, and it was really like trying to push volume of a fire hose into a little garden hose, right? And that happens like that.
Yeah.
So everyone really reacted, and I'm impressed. I have to say, our industry and my company specifically, it was painful the first few weeks, right? Systems cannot handle that amount of volume trying to come through the system at one time. And there was a lot of pivoting, a lot of quick build outs, a lot of problem solving that happened very quickly. A lot of long days and long hours for most of our teams. And we definitely became stronger because of it. So I would say that through the COVID, I think now we see a lot of industries, we've become stronger. We were forced to quickly change, quickly build out, quickly improve things that maybe we've kicked the can on, or maybe, haven't been a priority necessarily in the day-to-day minutia of things. Mm-hmm. And for that reason, we definitely came out stronger, but it was an intense awakening, real quick. I'll remember the morning that it happened, and it was immediate. There was a lot of manual manipulation that had to happen in terms of adjusting for that type of volume trying to come into the system, where the automations just can't handle it. So you have to do it manually in many ways. I think one of the comments I'll remember was when when the runs were happening on the supermarkets, and there was a picture in the news of a distribution center in the US, and there were like 20 trailer trucks outside of paper just trying to get into the warehouse that they were going to. And then there was a picture of, supermarket shelves, that paper aisle was empty. And that's such a great example of, the run on the supermarket is we couldn't fulfill fast enough, right? That amount of volume trying to come through the system at one time. A lot of the product was there. We couldn't get it out fast enough.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting dynamic that people don't think about, right? That connection from the picture on shelf. Yes, everything was empty, but in this case, there was still product in the market. We just couldn't get it there fast enough. So that's fascinating.
Well, it was too, because there was no in between. It was either the case where there was a surplus of product and a lack of outbound capacity, or a deficit in product and a huge increase in demand. There was no like, yeah, we have some, it'll be there tomorrow. It was bipolar. So that was just remarkable. Okay, so last comments, anything critical that you just like to say about the industry, or the key takeaways, or what those who might be watching who would be interested in getting into the industry, what opportunities that they'd have to look at?
Yeah, I think in today's world, Stephen, never been a more exciting time to be in supply chain. You know, the fast pace, the continued growth, the acceleration of change. This is just such an exciting time. Supply chain is the heartbeat, you know, any organization, how you move things from point A to point B. And when people think about supply chain, it's an exciting industry, but there's so many different pieces to it. So I would challenge students, you know, to really explore and look for those areas that they feel very passionate about or that drive them, whether it's analytics or sales. You know, there's so many different pieces connected to supply chain that you can really dig deep into. There's really a place for everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us. And yeah, I look forward to having another one of these conversations. But Krista, thanks for your time, and thank you to United Foods for allowing you to speak, and of course to the Masters in Supply Chain program at FAU. So if anybody has questions, I'll send them over to you. And if anybody wants to talk to me, well, I'm sure they'll be able to find me.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Krista. Take care.
Look forward to hearing from you. Bye, Stephen.